Alright. Attendance has been taken. Now, welcome to Story Night, everyone. I don't know if you saw what I posted earlier, Ericus, but I announced the start of Story Night through Buddy Chat. Would you like me to add you to my buddies list so you get the announcements in the future? And since this is Story Night Europe, does anybody need a copy of the story to read to make it easier for them to understand? I know you do, Minnesunda, and I'll send it out to you here shortly. Anyone who needs a copy of the story, just let me know. Alrighty. A little bit of housekeeping first. Um, there will be a Story Night Europe next weekend on the 27th. I'm sorry, the 29th. But there will be no Story Night Europe on August 5th. I'm going to be traveling that weekend, and um, it's not likely I'll be available for the story. In fact, I might not even be available for the All Guilds meeting. 5th. Oh, I'm sorry. September 5th. My bad. I got August on the brain still. Alright, so tonight's story is brought to you in part by dpwr.net for the Denis dates, uruarchives.com for the surface history corresponding to the Denis dates, and the Cavernian Calendar Converter, which was written by Brett Middleton of the Fuzzy Physics Institute for converting between Denis and surface time. Tonight's story is from Mist, the Book of Tiana. As we progressed through the stories of the kings, we saw many changes in the Denis culture. We saw an austere lifestyle that began with King Rinaref, supplanted by greed and avarice that began with King Shomat. We saw a devotion to Yavo and a single faith, supplanted by diverse religions and religious beliefs numbering over 2,000, diminishing to just a handful by the end of King Kareth's reign. Because of the writings of a martyred, self-proclaimed prophet named Gish, we saw their belief system being hijacked and steered away from the words and teachings of Yavo. In fact, with King Jaron, who was Kareth's grandfather, we learned that the classes had become more divided than ever before in their history. Yet the more violent factions in Denis decided to follow Yavo more closely and hope for a peaceful solution to their differing point of view. Gish's writings resulted in a conservative culture within Denis society, a culture that held the Arotanti, the outsiders, with great disdain and contempt. This general attitude among the Denis was another contributing factor in the demise of a once great empire. We looked at the Mi-Dis War, which occurred during the early 8th millennium of Denis history. It was a war that was, once again, started by violent factions who were vehemently against contact with the Arotanti. This prejudice, though not held with the same violent emotions, still was felt by the majority of Denis society, a society that was very ethnocentric as well as xenophobic. These feelings and opinions remained prevalent up to the fall. We learned about the origins of Yisha's journey ages, who created them and why. We learned about Agarus, the architect of the fall. His motives were not ethnocentric, nor did they stem from xenophobia. He was driven strictly by revenge. Revenge for being wrongly accused and convicted of a crime he did not commit. Revenge that drove him to commit genocide against his own people, a character flaw that would spell the end of an empire. Also, there were the beginnings of Atreus, one of the heroes of the fall, the excavation of the great shaft, and of a friendship with Viovis, who would become one of the villains. We learned about a surface dweller named Anna, her life and how she came to find the cavern, and those same old Denis fears of the Arotanti, the outsiders, and their possibly corrupting influence on the Denis populace. We learned of Anna's time in prison, her learning the Denis language, and of Viovis's anger which started to burn brightly against her over his beliefs in Denis elitism and supremacy over all other races. Last time we learned of Anna's trial and of her uncertain future, and more of Viovis's anger. Tonight we will learn of a friendship strained. In the Denis year of 9368, approximately 1712 AD on the surface, it was decided by the 5 lords of Denis, Enia the eldest and leader, Rehira, Rakeri, who was Viovis's father, Nehir, and Sajka, the youngest and newest member, that Anna should be allowed to remain in Denis while they debated amongst themselves what finally should be done with her, whether she should be allowed to return to her people, exiled to a prison age, or kept as a permanent resident of Denis. For his part, Viovis gave Anna her due. He admitted that her answers were honest, if not what the council wanted to hear, and that she was sincere. Still, he felt that she should be kept isolated from the general population of Denis, lest she become the focus of any movement to reverse the day's decision, or be sent to a more appropriate place, should such a movement arise. Atreus had been with Viovis during these remarks, along with Leonis, Viovis's advisor and tutor, and with Suiner, Viovis's maintainer friend. He was given a message with the seal of Lord Aeneas, but which was actually from his father Callas, summoning him home right away. After taking his leave of his friends, Atreus headed straight home. Curious why his father went through the subterfuge to summon him. Upon arriving, he understood. Lord Aeneas had asked Callas to look after the girl while the five debated her ultimate fate. Callas had agreed. When Atreus arrived home, he was informed of this and was formally introduced to the surface dweller Anna. Atreus and Veovis both agreed that the girl seemed genuine. Veovis invited Atreus to his home on the island of Kfir and insisted that he bring the girl with him. Veovis still could not bring himself to address the girl as Anna. One day, as Anna was exploring her new home, she entered a workroom. There she found many devices with which she was familiar, and a few with which she was not. This room was also lined with many journals on its shelves. She marveled at the characters, their intricacy, and the precise manner with which each was drawn. As she left the room and started back to her own room, she met Atreus in the hall, who escorted her back to the workroom. Once there, he handed her a child's book of Denis history. He received a blank stare in return. She explained that though she could speak Denis, she could not read it. The next book he gave to her was the Rehevkor, the word book, the book of the Denis lexicon. Explaining that she couldn't read it, Atreus promised to teach her. It was not long after that the two were invited to Kfir. Veovis enjoyed showing Anna what seemed to be every nook and cranny of the mansion. It was important to Atreus that Anna and Veovis be friends. The latter announced to both of his guests that he did, in fact, like Anna, and found that they were much alike. For her part, Anna had forgiven Veovis for his hostile line of questioning during her hearing. Though the atmosphere of the visit was friendly, there was one tense moment. Veovis made a point of telling Anna that he was Denis, proud to be Denis, and jealous of all things Denis, and for her to remember that always. In return, she informed Veovis that she was human, proud to be human, and that he should remember that. After that little exchange, the atmosphere returned to its previous joviality. On their way back to Atreus's family home, Anna was filled with many questions. Where does all the food come from? What are the things that are hidden in Denis? She wanted to know it all, for it mystified her. Once at home, Atreus took her to her family's locked book room and showed her the descriptive book to his family's age of Koa. As she was marveling at the glowing panel that appeared to be a window on an open age of the book, Atreus placed her hand on that panel, and she linked. He appeared shortly after her in the new world. She was a bit unsteady on her feet, filled with a giddy feeling. This new world to which she was somehow magically transported took her breath away. Piquing her interest, he explained the process of linking and of how it was accomplished by the special paper in the books, the special ink, and the special words written in the books, the Garohevti, the great words. A few days later, word came that Veovis was to receive his Korfa Vja, his first book celebration. commemorating the first age he had written, and that was approved of by the Guild of Maintainers. Viovis had sent an invitation for the celebration to the Callis household. Atris, of course, assumed that it included Anna, since she was living with them. A week after that, it was time for the celebration. A small private ceremony was held on the ancient Guild of Writers age of Yakul, with Grand Master Sajka and 6 assistant Grand Masters of the Guild of Writers. Viova's book, Adar Jamat, was added to the Guild of Writers canon of great works. There were only 93 such works accepted into the canon in the almost 10,000-year history of the Denis. Only 4 guildsmen were younger than Viovis was at that moment. Among those 4 was the great Rinaref, who was also the first king of Denis. That night, all of the who's who of Denis society gathered on Kavir to celebrate with Viovis. As Callis, Atris, Tessera, Atris's mother, and Anna approached Viovis to greet and congratulate him, his eyes turned and saw Anna. His smile faded. Not bothering to say something to Anna or Atris, he asked for a word with Callis, informing him that Anna was not invited, and that linking to ages was a privilege only for those of Denis blood, and as a result she would not be allowed to enter his age. Embarrassed, Callis informed his son of the misunderstanding, and that Anna would be allowed to remain on Kavir, looked after by Viovis's servants. Atris grew angry, for if she was not allowed to link to the celebration, if she was not even invited, then the invitation should have specifically said as much. It should not have waited for her to show up in Kavir. For his part, Viovis was very conservative with his Denis beliefs, a fact that was well known by all around him. He felt that, naturally, it would be assumed by all that Anna would not be allowed to link to his age. Therefore, he didn't feel it necessary to specify that in the invitation. That there would be some confusion probably never even entered his head. But now the damage was done. There would be no easy way out of the situation. Yet Viovis was adamant. Callis asked his son to respect Viovis's request. After apologizing to his father for what he was about to do, he turned to Viovis's father, Lord Ricari, and excused himself from the party as he was becoming ill. Turning to his friend, he wished Viovis well and excused himself. Viovis' expression darkened, a black anger growing behind his eyes. All he could do in response was to nod curtly. On the boat ride back home, Anna asked Atris what had happened. Atris explained his feelings, saying that Viovis was wrong to make him choose between him and Anna. He chose Anna because it was not right for Viovis to have made him choose in the first place. The next morning, Viovis came by to apologize to Atris and to Anna. In fact, he brought a peace offering of sorts. It was a tiny creature from his age of Adar Jamat, called a Riku, with cobalt blue eyes and long, silky, dark brown-black colored fur. Finally, he asked Atreus to stop by that night to discuss the tension between them. All was resolved except for one point. Beovis was adamant that Anna not be taught anything of their descriptive books, let alone be allowed to link to an age. He pressed Atreus to give his word on this. Atreus' reply was that he would consider it. It was enough for Beovis, for the time being. Upon his return home, Anna asked him how the meeting went. After relating the events to her, he paused a moment, then decided that he would show her something. He produced a cornea, a blank descriptive book. After explaining to her that he had had it for some time and was planning on writing his own age, he faced a dilemma. He was torn between defying Beovis and the trouble that might ensue, or denying his plans for Anna and him, for Atreus wanted to show her everything that Denis had to offer. He decided to go ahead with his plans, teaching her the Garlohevti and writing an age together with her. Please join us next time as we learn about a soulmate found and a friendship broken. The end.